Good. Well, good morning. Dr. Dwight Bates interviewing Dr. Craig Boyd. Thank you for taking your time for our students at the college.
My pleasure.
Dr. Boyd, how did you come to be a physician?
I grew up in a town of about 250 people. In my senior year, we moved to a big town, about 5,000 people, and I became an admirer of that doctor. And I went away to college because I was one of them that learned to read and write. And I fell in with the pre-med, the pre-dent, the pre-nursing. And since I admired the doctor in that little town, then I applied to the medical school and did the things required.
Where was that?
I went to school in Denton, Texas, and I went to medical school in Dallas at the Southwestern Medical School.
Okay. What college?
In Denton, the college at that point in time was called North Texas State Teachers College. It's now called the University of North Texas.
You may have already answered this, but how did you know that the career that you chose was right for you?
Well, I was falling in with the peers and to some degree peer pressure, and I was an admirer of the doctor from Graham, Texas, and so that seemed like it'd be a good thing.
So choose your peers wisely.
Sure.
How has your occupation changed with the evolution of technology?
Well, we didn't have a choice as to when we were born, and it was 50 years this year that I graduated from medical school. And so there has been a considerable evolution, some for good and some for not, and the technology has increased the cost of medical care and has brought about large problems on who to spend how much money on what.
All right. So what stresses are there in your occupation?
The major stresses, I think, in medical school and trying to meet your bills and all, the stresses in the occupation of the practice of medicine, you would bring some of them on yourself by ascribing expectations of patients that are really not there. The stress, some of the patients will, you can't cure everything everybody gets. Some of the patients will die. You can't meet all the expectations, and so I guess stresses are about as significant as you allow them to be.
What kind of, any back pain or neck pain from being a physician that goes with the job?
Well, when you become a physician, you're only 20-something years of age, so you don't have musculoskeletal complaints for a long time.
All right. Well, what are some of the more physical and emotional challenges that come with being a physician?
I suppose the physical challenges began at that point in time. They call it internship, and you had to be on duty every night or every third night. And the physical challenge was staying awake and doing the things that were assigned to you, and the amount of sleep was. The lack of sleep was a handicap, and that's been amended in the current training programs. They don't allow to keep them there greater than 90 hours a week or some particular number. Emotionally, I suppose that in some people there'd be a fear of failure or a fear of not meeting expectations. I never entertained that fear. Fear is going to knock on your door. And you must be careful not to invite fear in for dinner, and you must never invite fear to spend the night.
You've given some thought to that. Well, what is the most stressful part of your job? I may keep asking the same questions over and over different ways.
Well, I never thought of it as being stressful in a negative way. First thing you pay attention to is meeting the needs of the patient and meeting the salary and the overhead, and becoming a productive member of the community, so that might have the best result in the community.
So you went to school at what is now North Texas, then medical school at UT Southwestern,
Yes.
and then your intern was at Parkland?
My internship was at St. Paul Hospital in Dallas,
Okay.
which at that point in time was operated by the Catholic Sisters of Charity.
Yes.
It's now part of UT Southwestern Medical System.
So what would be the minimum education for your job?
Well, the minimum education now, as I understand it, is that you 4 years of college and 4 years of medical school and 2 or 3 years of general practice or other specialty training. It was lesser than that in the old days.
So you were industrial medicine, is that correct?
I did industrial or occupational medicine along with general practice at downtown Dallas. I had a walk-in medical clinic before the Jack in the Box concept was
In the
formed.
Cotton Exchange building, is that right?
I was in the old Medical Arts building downtown Dallas
Oh, you were?
until it was bought by the bank and torn down, and then in 1980, 2 or 3 I moved up the street to the Cotton Exchange building.
That's where I met you.
Yes.
So in college, did you have to take a class that was required that you just hated?
Yes, I didn't like physics. They had a prescribed pre-medical course, and it had organic and inorganic chemistry, and it had a whole lot of biology courses, but we also had a physics course. And whether it's left brain, right brain, or whatever, I never liked it.
All right. What kind of calculations, mathematical calculations, computations, does a physician have to make routinely?
The greater number would seem to me to be when you calculate doses for medications. And some of those are based on the characteristic of the medication itself. Some are based on the age or weight of the patient. But all of those calculations could be done from a book that you had. Now they're done off of a Palm Pilot or whatever these handheld.
I don't know what they're called.
Whatever these handheld things are. It's all on the deal. They can punch it in. On the medical mission trips that we've been on, a doctor would have that. And if I said, how much of so-and-so do, he'd punch it in and say, that's 100 milligrams. Okay.
All right, so that's an advance, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, given the chance, would you change your career?
No, not at this point, and not with the enjoyment that I've had, no.
If there were one thing about your career that you would like a future colleague to know, what would that be?
I would tell them that things have changed, and you made a good living in the old days and you could be independent. Today you're not going to be independent or solo to any degree. The entire medical dollar is now divided among the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies and insurance company executives and airplanes and so forth. In the old days, we just had Blue Cross Blue Shield, and it was non-profit, so whatever amount of money there was, with the vast majority of it would be spent on behalf of the patient. Now that the amount spent on behalf of the patient is a lesser percentage. And I would tell future colleagues that really you don't go into medicine figuring that you're going to get super rich. Leave that up to computer programs and Wall Street people. But your reward in life in serving people is going to be greater than that, and you will make above average living even if you're working for the insurance company. I don't necessarily like the intrusion into the practice of medicine, but that's the way it exists today.
All right, well, thank you very much, Dr. Boyd, for taking time to educate our students. This is an addendum that we can add or delete. we had talked to Dr. Boyd earlier about what his answer would be if the president were to call him tonight and say, what are we going to do about our medical problems? And Dr. Boyd would tell him
that, well, you've only got so much medical care, and it has always been rationed. Those that could afford it or pay for it got it, and those that didn't couldn't. And now they want to modify that and draw people in and let the government pay for part of it. If you add 40 million people to the 100 million that can afford it, then somebody's going to have to wait a month or 2 months or 3 months to get their care. And they would be served well if they went to the countries of the world that have working optimal medical delivery systems and see what makes them good and emulate some of that. But we have no confidence in Congress since they are unable to address the national debt anyway.
What country do you think has the best medical design care?
I think from where I've been and what I've read that Canada is more than adequate. No, but they had to close hospital beds and operating rooms when they brought additional citizens into the number that they were going to serve, and so there was a wait for some people. The British system works pretty well unless you have something major, and those that can afford it, they go down to France or Germany or fly over to the USA. The United States opportunity is to go to China, is to go to India or any of these countries that operate on behalf of Western world people, and you can get the same treatment there that you get at the Mayo Clinic, but it doesn't cost you as much. And that's pretty interesting also, that they train over here at Harvard, then they go over there, and you can go over there and you only pay a third of what you would in this country. So that's interesting. Sweden, Norway, they have quite low neonatal deaths, quite low pregnancy complications, and a life expectancy greater than that of the United States. Just as you said, the preventive medicine is the best. If you can get a population that is aerobically fit, is not obese, who doesn't smoke or take drugs, then the total cost of medical care is going to go down, because those things constitute 70 or more % of the dollars that are spent anyway. But you cannot, it appears that we're not given the freedom to make choices for other people, nor them the freedom to make choices for us. And so when you say get rid of obesity or whatever, it's a problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.